Have you ever wondered how the ancient Egyptians built the Great Pyramids? The official story is that they quarried massive stone blocks, some weighing as much as a car, and hauled them for miles across the desert and up the pyramid. It's an incredible feat of engineering. But what if there's another, simpler explanation? What if they didn't haul the blocks at all? Today, we're diving into a fascinating, controversial theory that could completely change how we see these ancient wonders. The idea is this: the pyramid blocks aren't carved natural stone, but an early form of concrete. Let's start with the problem with the mainstream theory. Imagine trying to move a 2.5-ton block. Now imagine doing it 2.5 million times. That's what it would have taken to build the Great Pyramid of Giza. Archaeologists suggest they used ramps, sledges, and a whole lot of manpower. But the logistics are mind-boggling. How did they get the blocks so high? How did they fit them together so perfectly, with gaps so small you can't even fit a piece of paper between them? These questions have puzzled experts for centuries, leaving room for alternative ideas. This is where the geopolymer theory, or ancient concrete theory, comes in, championed by Professor Joseph Davidovits, a French materials scientist. This idea proposes that the Egyptians were master chemists, not just stonemasons. He suggests they used a simple, readily available mixture of materials to cast the blocks right on the pyramid itself. They would take soft limestone from the Giza Plateau, which is easy to break apart, and mix it in water with a binding agent. This agent could have been natron, a type of salt abundant in Egypt, or kaolin clay, and even plant ash. This would create a slushy, concrete-like mixture. Now, picture this. Instead of dragging heavy stones up a giant ramp, workers carry buckets of this limestone slurry. They pour it into wooden molds placed directly on the pyramid's rising structure. The slurry hardens and voila, you have a perfectly shaped block, molded exactly where it needs to be. This process would explain the incredible precision of the stones. They fit together perfectly because they were cast against each other. One block would harden, and then they'd build a mold for the next one right beside it, using the first block as one side of the mold. It's like making a giant, interlocking puzzle, piece by piece. What's the evidence for this? Well, it's pretty compelling. When scientists examined samples from the pyramids under powerful microscopes, they found some surprising things. The microstructure of some blocks doesn't look like natural limestone. Natural limestone is made of fossil shells held together by crystalline calcite. But in some pyramid stones, these shells are all jumbled up, and the binding material looks different, more like an amorphous cement. They even found microscopic air bubbles and organic fibers, like human hair or plant fibers, trapped inside the stone, things you wouldn't expect to find in natural quarried rock. These are telltale signs of a man-made material, something that was once a liquid and then solidified. Further analysis has revealed a much higher water content in the pyramid blocks compared to stone from the nearby quarries. This is another big clue. If the blocks were cast from a wet slurry, it makes sense that some of that water would remain chemically bound within the stone as it hardened. This is consistent with how modern concrete cures. Think about it: why would blocks carved from a dry quarry have more water in them? It doesn't add up under the traditional theory. This theory also solves a lot of logistical problems. First, it eliminates the need for massive, complex ramp systems to haul multi-ton blocks to the top of the pyramid. Smaller ramps for carrying materials and baskets would have been sufficient. Second, it explains the incredible speed at which the pyramids were supposedly built. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, wrote that the Great Pyramid was built in just 20 years. Casting blocks would be a much faster process than quarrying, shaping, and hauling them. A small team could mix the slurry, fill the molds, and let them set, assembly line style. And what about the tools? We found very few copper chisels from that period, and copper is a soft metal. It would have been incredibly difficult to cut and shape millions of hard limestone blocks with such tools. But if they were simply breaking up soft, crumbly limestone to make the slurry, those tools would have been more than adequate. The molds themselves would have been made of wood, which would have decomposed over the millennia, explaining why we haven't found them. Let's look at some Egyptian texts for clues. An ancient stone tablet known as the famine stele, although dated much later, describes a recipe for making man-made stone given by the god Khnum to King Djoser, the builder of the first step pyramid. The text lists various minerals and materials to be mixed together to create artificial stone for building temples. While its authenticity for the Old Kingdom is debated, it shows that the concept of creating stone was present in Egyptian thought. Could this be a preserved memory of a lost technology? Of course, this theory is not without its critics. Most Egyptologists remain committed to the quarried block theory. They argue that we have clear evidence of quarrying operations, including the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, which shows how they cut directly from bedrock. They also point to markings on the blocks that seem to be from quarry gangs. They believe the microscopic anomalies found in the stones can be explained by natural variations in the limestone. They argue that if the Egyptians had such an advanced concrete technology, why don't we see it used more widely in their other structures? It's a valid point. However, proponents of the geopolymer theory suggest that this special technique might have been a closely guarded secret, reserved only for the divine pharaoh's eternal home. The ingredients themselves, limestone, clay, salt, are so common that after the blocks hardened, they would look almost identical to natural stone. The secret wasn't in the materials, but in the recipe. Once the pyramid was complete and the knowledge was no longer needed, it could have easily been lost to time. So, where does that leave us? We have a mainstream theory that honors the raw power and organizational genius of the Egyptians but struggles with logistical details. And we have an alternative theory that presents them as brilliant chemists, using clever material science to make their monumental task easier. It explains the precision, the speed, and the anomalies found within the stones themselves. Ultimately, the debate is far from over. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. Maybe some blocks were quarried and hauled, especially for the lower levels, while the upper, harder-to-reach blocks were cast in place. This hybrid approach could satisfy both sides of the argument. It would mean the Egyptians were not just masters of one technique, but were pragmatic innovators using whatever method was most efficient for the job at hand. What do you think? Were the pyramids built with brute force and ramps, or with a brilliant, long-lost recipe for ancient concrete? It's a mystery that continues to captivate us, reminding us that the ancient world might still have some incredible secrets waiting to be uncovered. Exploring theories like this isn't about discrediting the achievements of the Egyptians. It's about appreciating their genius from a different angle. They were builders, engineers, and maybe, just maybe, pioneering chemists too. Thanks for watching and exploring this fascinating topic with us. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.